Welcome back to Sunday Night Spookies, a podcast dedicated to exploring the mysterious and the spooky unknown. My name is Lex.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is episode 1, The Fae.
Quick disclaimer before we actually begin. Neither one of us are experts in this field or any of the topics that we're probably going to talk about. So take what we say with a grain of salt. Opinions are going to differ. Experiences are going to differ. None of this is backed by science as of yet. I don't know, maybe it will be in the future. So agreeing to disagree is a pretty good life skill to have. So use it.
Yeah.
Okay, so today's episode is going to be about the Fae. And I think I learned a lot. The Fae has been like an umbrella term.
That's a new thing.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that the term the Fae or fairies could describe like a ton of different things. And maybe we can do like another episode on it later, but so like throughout history, the Fae or fairies have been used to describe things that typically aren't mortal, but they're not ghosts. So they could be like gnomes, goblins, nymphs, elves, sprites, anything like that. The oldest reference we have of the Fae or fairies or anything of the like is actually during like the Greek time, during Homer. I think Homer is referenced. Like nymphs are actually quite popular in Greek mythology.
Interesting.
I thought they were their own thing. I didn't think that they were going to be like, I mean, I guess it makes sense to be under the Fae term.
Yeah.
But I just thought,
I didn't know it was so broad.
Yeah, I didn't either. And then there was a lot, like, I guess the Fae and the fairies and all this kind of stuff picked up in, like, the 1600s, particularly in England and Scotland. In 1691, a Scotland reverend named Robert Kirk wrote an exposition kind of detailing, I mean, part of it was detailing, like, his views on the Fae. He said that the Fae or the fairies represented a complete secret commonwealth that existed in a reality or dimension parallel to our own. He also suggested that they lived by their own morals with a complete and functioning civilization that he believed only seers or clairvoyants could see or sense. And I think that could like partly be where our beliefs of the Fae like stem from today, that they have their own separate realm. Because I think that's like, I knew that about the Fae. Like that was like,
yeah, it's
kind of like not well known because maybe not many people know that, but like that's how I saw them. Like, that they had their own realm. It was also around this time, again, particularly in parts of England, that people came to believe that the Fae folk or fairies were to blame for like various mishaps. Actually, a really popular one was that if you had a newborn and that newborn was sick, they had thought, or a lot of people thought that it was the Fae, that they had came and like replaced your child with a changeling, and that's why they was sick. They also, like any other kind of sickness, things going missing, like anything mischievous, which again I think is where we get some of those views today, that a lot of people during like the 1600s and the time of the Reverend, like I got a lot of references to that like in the research I was doing. And then a lot of Irish stuff came up, and I think that the Celtic mythology or the Celtic lore on fairies is pretty similar to what we think of today when we think of fairies. Like that, it was just so similar when I was reading it. But I kept going back to one old Irish tale. It was like one story that I kept reading on every website or every book that like PDF that I found. And it's basically, the legend goes that there's a man named Oisin who was napping under an ash tree. And he would, also, I'm going to pronounce all of these wrong. Like, it's old Irish. Yeah, it's old Irish names. I have the pronunciation written down, but no promises. So Oisin was napping under an ash tree when he awoke, or he was awoken by Neve, who was the shape-shifting queen of Turn the Nog. Again, probably saying that wrong. And she woke him up to ask him to join her in the land of perpetual youth as her husband. Of course, he agrees, and he's taken to a paradise. The name implies no one ever ages. It's always summer. There's no bad or evil, and there's no death. Like in any sense of the word, nothing dies. Relationships don't die, nothing. There's only one rule in this realm of perpetual youth, and there's a specific rock on a mountain or a hill that if you go and stand on top of it, it said that you can see Old Ireland. So, of course, Oisin goes and does this. He grows curious. He goes to the mountain and he stands on the rock and he looks back and sees Ireland, and it's said that you will see like complete shambles, like it's destroyed. There's like ruins, like it looks like Ireland has been completely destroyed, and he's really upset by it. So he goes back to the queen and he says, I have to go back to my homeland. I have to, it's in shambles, it's in ruins. So she reluctantly agrees, and she gives him a horse so he can ride back down the other side of the mountain to go see this old land. But he is given one rule: no matter what, under any circumstances, he can't dismount his horse. Of course, he's not very obedient. He gets off his horse. As soon as he gets there, he gets off his horse.
Of course he does.
And, yeah, right? Who would have thought? And now this is where the tale kind of differs. There's some versions that say as soon as his foot hits the ground, he's immediately turned to dust because he spent so much time in this realm that he doesn't exist anymore. His soul doesn't exist outside of that realm. And then other versions say that he's turned into a very old, frail man who's left with nothing but the knowledge that he has and the guilt that he carries for disobeying. And I think this also ties into fairies having their own realm. Like, that's never been, like, in all the research I found, that hasn't been, like, that's never changed. Right. Like, there's always some talk of some other realm or whatever, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I also found that this story is linked to the belief that fairies are in-betweeners. So they're not completely mortal, but they're not divine. And,
sure.
And some people were saying that, like, they were fallen divine, like gods and goddesses that had fallen and got stuck halfway. Other people just think that that's what they are. They've always been in-betweeners type thing. But that point came up a lot, that they were just, I mean, it makes sense, because what are they? Like, in this separate realm that's not ghosts,
right?
But not us.
But I also read that it was, like, mortal people who just had, like, a little bit extra special.
I didn't find that. That's cool to note, too.
Yeah.
Because if they're in-betweeners, that would make sense.
Yeah.
For that to happen as well. Now, for anybody who celebrates the Sabbats, like I do, if you don't know what the Sabbats are, it's basically like the pagan holidays. I'm using pagan as like a general
umbrella term.
Yeah, umbrella term. But you can look them up. They're quite popular, actually. I personally celebrate the Sabbats. And I knew before starting this that the Fae they're associated with the spring Sabbats of Beltane and Ostara. And those, it said that the veil between the Fae and the mortals is the thinnest during Beltane, like the night of Beltane. Kind of like how if you know anything about the Sabbats, during Samhain, the veil between the living and the dead is the thinnest. And that's like the time to contact loved ones or anybody who's passed on. So it's said that a lot of communication can happen between the Fae and us during this time. And I think people were thinking that because it's kind of like they're spring holidays. They're in the spring. And it's basically those holidays celebrate the earth coming back to life after the death of winter. And so things are regrowing, like there's, animals are giving birth. It's like, I know Beltane is like May Day, and I know people in England celebrate May Day more than us in the States, but that's like in the pagan community or like some like Wiccan beliefs specifically, if you're looking to conceive a child, you do it around this time because that's like fertilization and growth and life and everything. So everybody, like a lot of people were saying that since this is such about the earth, like these holidays are so earth-based, that the nature spirits, the sprites, the nymphs, the fae, as an umbrella term, are the most active during this time. And so I actually found a lot of articles like, hey, this is how you can interact with them if you want to, or this is how you can like communicate with the fae. But not a lot of the articles kind of gave precautions, and I think you and I both know that there's like, I don't want to say a stigma, but like
there's some guidelines
and caution
that ought to be followed.
Yeah. And I've never like researched or looked into, or I don't know how to connect with them. Like that's something that I've never looked up because to be honest, it's kind of like freaking me out a little bit because I've heard like stories of like people trying to connect with them or like talk to them or like making deals with them or whatever, and then things go wrong. Like they're like,
it's kind of obscure.
Yeah, they're like little sneaky bitches. I don't know.
Right.
Like it freaks me out a little bit. Like I don't want to. Don't come for me.
Right. Well, like you said, the fae isn't always fairies or sprites. It can be elves, nymphs, gnomes, even. So it's important to be open to that when you're trying to connect with the fae realm. Another misconception is that the creatures you meet will have dainty features and bodies and be small.
So basically, like
with little wings, but that's
not everything's gonna look like Tinkerbell.
No, absolutely not. So sometimes you might meet a creature who is short, stocky, with a wide nose, and
who knows
anything. It could be less human-like than...
Yeah, I even read on some articles that people were classifying banshees as fae, and I was like, I thought most of these things were their own shit. Like,
big umbrella.
Yeah.
So, if you're interested in connecting with fairies, most of the time they're found outside, and like you said, with the spring holidays, being outside and planting a garden is a really good way to attract fairies. Because you're putting life back into the earth and they're attracted to that. I've
also read that, like, if you don't take care of your garden, that can, like, anger them. Like, if you set the intention to plant a fairy garden and you don't take care of it or there's trash in it.
It's insulting.
And they can, like, screw with you.
Yep. So you can build fairy houses. I read that they don't necessarily need it to be full of nature. You can get, like, a pre-made birdhouse from Michael's and then decorate it kind of how they would like it. So, I mean, you want to add sticks and rocks, moss, something sparkly because they tend to be gravitating towards sparkly things.
A lot of shinies.
And that's something to know if you are finding that some of your items have gone missing and you can't find them anywhere that you look. They could have borrowed them. Or taken them.
Or taken them. I like borrowed. Maybe they'll give it back.
They borrowed it. So you could also leave them small offerings, and that might help with them taking things if you just give them something. That's all their own. And it can be snacks such as fruit juice or honey or even just sugar water. They prefer sweet things. You can also put trinkets or charms with the treats, and if they end up missing, they must have liked them. Don't feel discouraged if they don't interact with your offerings right away. You just have to be patient.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, like, fae interaction is kind of rare.
And they might be shy at first because they don't really know you.
That's true. Like, any creature, ghost, spirit you try to interact with, like, it's not gonna...
You have to win them over.
Yeah, it's not gonna work the first try, probably.
Right. You can know that they're around if you hear faint music or bells, and just kind of being aware of your surroundings and knowing what is interacting with you. And that's really great practice for connecting with any other realm, not just the fae realm.
Yeah.
Just being open.
And being grounded, I think, is a good one.
Yeah, and don't be closed off. Just be vigilant, ever vigilant. While you are giving gifts to the fae, they may also be leaving you gifts. Usually they're physical tokens or trinkets to thank you for a service that you provided to them. And that can be crystals, stones, feathers, tiny bones, anything.
Start collecting bones, man.
Yeah.
Make a little necklace.
A necklace of bones.
A vertebrae necklace.
And if you received a gift seemingly without purpose, they could be courting you and kind of trying to win you over. You can return the favor by leaving them an offering, or if you're not interested, you can find iron nails.
Oh, really? I've heard that, like, if they're courting you or they're leaving you stuff, that, like, I've heard, like, horror stories. Like, I guess not horror,
like, but
like, bad things happening, or, like, they can get, like, mad if you don't. I mean, like I said, I've never researched how to interact or what any of that means.
Yeah, so they don't like iron or soot. That will repel them if you are uninterested. It's also advised not to thank the Fae for a gift that they have left you. It's a sign of indebtedness, and they'll come to collect on a favor. And
Really?
Yeah. It implies
So
that you
maybe-
owe them something.
Oh, that's.
It's a little,
I'm very polite. I think a lot of things.
yeah.
It's kind of like unnerving. Like that's kind of creepy to think about.
And that's not to say that all Fae is necessarily bad or with malintent, but I think to be on the safe side.
Yeah, like, well, there's like I guess, from among people who are like interested in this stuff, there's like a general knowing that the Fae can be like mischievous and
sometimes malevolent. I think it just
Yeah.
depends on who or what you're dealing with.
yeah.
Yeah. So there's some ground rules that I found while I was researching.
And again, disclaimer, like,
Yeah,
none of this is set in stone. This is just
Yeah, it's 4 rules kind of put together by, I think, people
various sources.
people in the spooky community
Yeah.
have put together, I
All right,
think.
makes sense.
So, number 1, never give them your name because names have power. So you either give yourself a nickname when you speak to them or don't use a name at all.
I guess that makes sense. Like,
They
at
can
first
use
you
it
started-
against you.
Yeah, when you started like saying that, I'm like, why? But like, names have power. Like, especially like in demonic possessions. Like, that's like the one thing I can relate it to.
Yeah.
That's how you like rid the demon, is you have to find out the name of the demon.
Yes. Number 2, never thank them. Like I said, it's an admission to a debt owed. 3, be kind and polite to the Fae at all times. Use caution when speaking to them because they can hold grudges for long periods of time.
Oh, cool.
And that means not great things for you. Kind of on the same note, being unhospitable or selfish is often frowned upon by the Fae. So if you do not meet their standards, your punishment could range from being pricked by a thorn to being given 7 years of lameness or to being drowned in a bog.
Oh.
It's...
Wow. That,
Yeah.
guess my fears maybe justified. I don't want to be drowned in a dirty bog.
Or
Lameness.
7 years of lameness.
That wouldn't be good for me. I kind of need my lame.
I need it. So, yeah. And then number 4, and this one is a little bit terrifying to me.
Okay.
Well, okay. Don't accept anything edible from the Fae because it could force you to stay in the land of the Fae. You'll no longer crave human food and you'll starve to death.
What?
Yeah, it's...
Bro, I used to go berry picking all the time. What if I almost died? Am I human?
Wait.
No, I just craved chicken. I'm
I
fine.
think I'm Fae. No. So...
I've never heard of that. Like, some of the stuff I'd be like, yeah, I've heard that, but that...
Yeah.
What?
And that kind of, like, moves into, like, fairy rings. Also called elf circles. Or pixie rings. Because I think those are all part of...
Yeah. All part of the same
Fae.
thing.
Yeah, so fairy rings are typically a circle of dark green grass or a ring of mushrooms on the ground. I think that's what they're most commonly known
Yeah,
as.
that reminds me of the Spiderwick Chronicles. I can never say that right.
It can also apply to any perfect circular impression on grass at all.
I think they're competing for crop circles.
I know. That's what I thought when I read it, but I was like, well, whatever. That's what it is. So legend has it that these marked locations are where fairies gather, and standing on one will deeply offend the fairies and in turn bring that person bad luck or great misfortune.
Like standing on the ring or in the ring? Oh, in it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, that's...
And you could just stumble into one and not even realize it. So all of these like wooded walks. Just gotta
like we go on like hikes
wooded walks
all the time. Like,
have to watch out for fairy circles because
ever vigilant.
it's not a great time if you stand in one. Some people believe that the rings are a portal between fairy realm and our world, and some people believe that they're formed by shooting stars or lightning strikes or the work of witches.
I'm not casting no fairy circles, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, if I am, it's very unintentional, and I'm sorry. But
that is my bad. Fully.
That's kind of interesting. The like the shooting stars and the lightning thing. I mean, it makes sense. Forces of nature, right? But like, how does lightning go in a circle? Am I just dumb?
If lightning hits the ground, maybe it
Just kind of disperses
energy in some way.
Who knows?
It has
it's
to.
A fairy ring. I have no
Who
idea.
knows? The number one rule about fairy rings is don't step in the ring. It's said that it can cause a premature death. Mm-hmm. And once in there, you will become invisible to the mortal world and you'll be unable to escape.
Can you tell if you're in the ring? Like, do you think you'd be able to know?
Yeah, because that's part of the torture. I think you have to know that you're being tortured in order to be tortured. To be tortured.
Makes sense.
I
wonder if it, like, maybe that's what fish feel like. It's like an honest point. Like, what if somebody walks by and you try, like, yelling for them and they
can't hear you because
or see you? That's like,
right.
Damn.
Once you're in the ring, you will be forced to dance around it until you die of exhaustion or madness.
I can't dance.
No.
Not at all.
No. So, yeah, once you're in there...
I don't think it would take me very long to die of exhaustion.
Me either. That's the special form of torture. But if you don't do that, you will either die or lose an eye from your foolishness.
I have a cousin who doesn't have an eye.
Is that what happened?
Maybe I should ask her. Hey.
I need the story.
Yeah.
I need the deets.
Did you have to dance in a fairy ring? Or did you lose your eye because you didn't?
Because you didn't dance in the fairy ring. It is said that centuries can pass in the mortal realm, but in the fairy circle, it's only a few seconds.
I guess that makes, like, to me that makes sense. Because of, like, the old Irish tale that I found where he was, like, immediately turned to dust when he got back to the real world.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's doesn't exist anymore. And any life that you knew doesn't exist anymore.
That's so, like...
It's only...
I don't think I can wrap my head around that.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
If you get out.
Right, which is my next question. Can you get out once you're in? Do they let you go?
Don't think so.
Oh, good.
Don't think so. However, you can avoid negative consequences of stepping into a fairy circle. So if you're already in there,
you're shit out of luck.
If you happen to step into a fairy circle on accident, you can avoid any negative repercussions by running around the ring 9 times.
That's a number, like, I've heard that 9 is associated with the fairies before. Mm-hmm. I don't know where I've heard it, but, like, I know that.
If you run around it 10 times, it will completely undo it, and you will end up in
death
or centuries of torture.
My favorite.
Another way to rid yourself of the consequences of stepping in a fairy circle, you can run around the ring during a full moon, but you must run in the direction the sun goes during the day. So that's something you'd have to do pretty instantaneously to avoid consequences, and I couldn't tell you which way the sun goes.
I think I should know this, and I don't.
Well, and then you have to plan to accidentally step in it on the night of the full moon.
That was my next question. Like, how do you?
Yeah. Also, you could run around the circle with your hat backwards.
What if you're not wearing a hat?
I don't know if that's.
You look terrible in hats. I'm never wearing a hat.
You better be wearing a hat. Is all I'm saying.
Or start dancing. Maybe if you just immediately start dancing, they'll like, oh, they already know.
Yeah.
And they'll, okay.
Prepped.
Yeah, maybe they'll let you go.
So while looking into fairy rings, I was kind of wondering what the largest fairy ring looked like. And that's a big circle of mushrooms. And when I say it's a big circle, I mean that it's 2,000 feet in diameter.
Oh my god.
How do you not step in that?
How do you not step in that? How did you find that out? Is it like a it's gotta be a well-known thing.
Apparently it is. I found it on many a website.
Wow.
And that's in Belfort, France.
I wonder how many people had to like disappear for them to realize it was a fairy circle.
Well, I'm like, is it in the middle of nowhere, or is it in town?
Oh, true that.
You know?
We should have looked at that.
I don't know. 2,000 feet in diameter and 700 years old.
What if 700 years old? What if it's like... What if somebody's house is in that, like, circle?
I don't know.
Can the circle be broken? Can you have, like, buildings, like... You know what I'm saying? Like, the outskirts of the circle?
I don't know. I don't know. I know they get bigger over time.
Do they really?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I did look into the science of it.
I feel like that you're setting people up at that point.
I looked into the science of it because
what science there is.
We like to be transparent about science also.
Oh yeah, I love science. Science is great.
I don't know technical terms. Didn't write it down. But basically, it happens all the time, I guess, in nature with mushrooms, and it's like supposedly
it's a phenomenon that happens.
Yeah. So supposedly it's where old trees have died and gone is where they form.
Oh, okay. So they could be like small, like really small.
They could be tiny. Or they could be huge, and then over time, it said like when the mushrooms die, new ones form farther out.
I knew that. That is a thing that I know. How many times can I say that?
That's a thing I know. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's crazy to me that it's like, yeah, they get bigger over time. What?
I mean, 2,000 feet. I don't know what 2,000 feet is in meters.
I don't know what 2,000 feet looks like.
I mean,
I'm big, but
a mile is 5,280 feet.
Oh, okay.
So it's a little bit under half a mile then.
Damn.
Maybe closer to like a third of a mile, quarter of a mile.
So there's gotta be buildings. I mean, unless it's like a field somewhere.
A giant field and yeah. I don't know. Something to look into.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up and then I'll post it on Instagram.
Yeah, because now
follow our Instagram because now I have to know.
Now very interested. Or if you know, let us know.
Let us know because now I'm like mind blown.
2,000 feet.
There's gotta be things in there.
Well, I'm like, if you're in it, what if you didn't know that you were in it?
What if there's a house right in the middle of it?
Yeah.
Does that house just like not exist to us?
Don't know.
I can't. My head's gonna
It's something we have to look into. Mm-hmm. There is actually another pretty well-known fairy circle in Ireland, and you know a little bit more about that than I do.
Yeah, this one is really weird because there's like two, I guess, attributes that are like specifically associated with this fairy ring. It's got a title. It's on the Wicklow-Carlow border in Ireland. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it's like northern or southern. That's just where it's at, I guess. And it's called the Ring of the Wrath.
Oh,
so that is
slightly intimidating.
Pretty
but that's
intense.
Totally fine.
It's said to be like an ancient fairy site that's been there since ancient times. And these two, like, people can go there and do this specific thing, and it's supposed to like give them powers, or like it's supposed to, like, the fairies are, I guess, supposed to be responsible for what happens.
Sure.
So the first thing is if a couple is trying to conceive and they can't get pregnant. It said that if the couple together goes and stands in the fairy ring and asks for the fairies and the ancestor spirits to help them conceive, they can, like, and it's like certain times of the year, if you go to the fairy ring, step in the circle with your significant other or whoever you're trying to conceive with, it said that the fairies can grant you that wish.
So that's a little bit more positive in this situation.
Yeah, there's consequences.
Oh, okay. Just kidding.
I don't know the specifics, but it's said that you have to give them something, or there's always some kind of price to pay.
Sure.
And not a lot of people have like talked about what that price is.
I imagine it's probably
morbid in some way.
Morbid, but also like morbidly equivalent.
Yeah.
You know, like as serious as it is to want to conceive a child, you're also going to have to give up something that's pretty important.
Pretty serious, yeah. It's also said if a person is seeking to marry and they're not having any luck with relationships, they can also go and stand in this specific fairy ring and do a particular ritual. I couldn't find what the ritual was. It wasn't like noted in this article, which
sure.
I'm kind of glad because I don't want anybody to go trying it.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds kind of scary. But it says if you do it correctly, you'll be married within a year.
Okay.
Like,
at a price.
At a price, yep. The second gift, I think, is actually pretty interesting to me. It's about musicians. And I'm a musician. It said that if a musician goes on a certain Sabbath, again, it doesn't list the Sabbath, which kind of sucks. Not that I would go do it, but if a musician goes and sleeps during a specific Sabbath in the circle overnight, sleeps there in the frickin' circle overnight, you will wake up with some kind of otherworldly musician gift at a price.
but we don't know what the price is. They'll tell you what the price is when you get there.
I'm sure it's like specific to the person.
It's got to be something that's important to you.
Yeah, like it's got
something you're willing to give up.
Yeah, and it's got to be specific to the person. It has to be. But yeah, it's said that you'll have some kind of otherworldly musicianship power afterwards.
Okay.
Kind of creepy. There's also a couple of like scary stories from this specific ring, of people like disappearing or like hearing stuff within the ring. So I'm going to read a couple. I'm going to link the article in the description of the podcast so you can go check it out yourselves, because I'm just going to read it word for word. The author is actually a really good article, and I'll link him as well because I don't have him written down. Okay, so the first story is about a child that goes missing. So it says, one example of this case from the Wicklow border is when a young girl vanished for 3 days. The whole community searched high and low for her, looking in the fields, ditches, and woodlands, but to no avail. When the girl finally reappeared, she told her parents that she had been taken away by tiny men in red. The girl managed to overcome her ordeal, but the site of the abduction was recorded by the locals and preserved to make sure nobody else suffered the same fate. And it said that the girl was like traumatized. Like it took her a long while to actually like get over what happened.
Oh, I'm sure.
Not get over it. That sounds kind of harsh, but like to be able to talk about what actually happened to her.
Process it.
Yeah. There's another, I guess, pretty famous Irish tale of a woman who was abducted. She went missing overnight. And when she was returned, she told the search party that was searching for her that she, quote, was in lovely cities and saw lovely women, all who bowed to her. And there are a lot of people that have like studied this case, said that there's a lot of parallels with UFO abductions, but she adamantly claims it was the Fae. Like it was 100% like totally fairies that were behind it.
Mm-hmm.
There was another, There was another story of a man who thought that there was fairy treasure there. So it says, another grisly fairy encounter concerns the fate of a Carlow man who decided to dig in the local fairy mound because it was rumored it contained the fairy treasure. The man began digging and hacking away at the ditches and the hawthorn trees around the mound, and before long he began to notice a murder of crows gathering in the nearby trees. A faintness soon came over the man, and he decided to head home, but when he arrived, he began to bleed from his eyes, and it said that it was a punishment for trespassing where he shouldn't have and destroying their fairy mound.
That sounds about right.
Which you had mentioned, like eyes earlier. Yeah, so that is specifically that fairy ring that's in Ireland on the Wicklow-Carlow border, which I thought was kind of cool because I haven't heard, like I've heard of fairy rings, but I haven't heard of them having specific purposes.
No, me either.
Like if you have this, like if you can't conceive, come here and do this or whatever. Which that's scary. Like,
yeah, I mean, like, good that you can get the things that you want, but also
the vague. It's at a price. It's always at a price, and the fact that like I couldn't find what the price was for these people. Like they were, and the article goes on and talks about how like a lot of people, after having an encounter with the Fae or being trapped in the fairy realm and being able to come back, have been like mute or haven't been able to speak, or they've gone mad and they haven't been able to like regain their minds as it once was. Like, so the article is just pretty interesting. Like I said, I'll link it in the description, but it was
wild. Yeah,
and I think that a lot of people are like assuming that the Fae or fairies are like these cute little creatures, which they can be.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think
they can be like innocent and springy, but not always.
Not always. There's consequences, I guess.
Well, I feel like I learned a lot about the Fae today.
Yeah, I did as well. Especially some of the stuff that you brought, I was like
yeah,
freaking.
I didn't realize the Fae was that ancient.
that ancient and that like the umbrella term, the fact that they could like we don't know what the hell they are. Like they could be any of these list of nondescript creatures. Like what? I think that really surprised me.
Yeah. It's wild.
Wild.
Well, that's just about all we have on the Fae for episode 1.
Episode 1.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. If you have any other information that you would like to share with us about the Fae, then you should definitely get a hold of us on Instagram at Sunday Night Spookies or on Twitter, and our handle is at Sunday Spookies.
Yeah, and just, again, take everything we say with a grain of salt. We're definitely not experts. Mm-hmm. We're just curious.
We're curious and passionate about spooky stuff.
Yeah, spooky stuff. But, yeah, none of this is backed by science. Please don't be mean to us. We're not mean to you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Sunday Night Spookies.
And we hope you join us next week, where we share our findings and recap our on-location investigation from Hell's Bridge in Algoma Township, Michigan.
New episodes are released every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. Thanks for listening, and as always, stay spooky.